Okay, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Accommodation Show. This week, I am joined by the wonderful, the amazing, the brilliant Terry Whyte, who is known as the vacation rental software guy, but he's also a property manager. Welcome to the show.
Bart, it's a pleasure to be here. I was waiting for this moment for a long time.
It's a little bit like that, isn't it? We've been talking for years. We've been kind of hounding each other, stalking each other, seeing each other's journeys, and it's one of those interviews that has escaped me for quite a long time, but we finally got here because one of the questions that I've been getting, and I get all the time, is which PMS should I be choosing, Bart? And I don't know why it's took me this long to get back in touch with you and say, hey, Terry, I need to talk to you. I need to do a podcast with you because you told me maybe 2-3 years ago that you've done a lot of this work. Can you kind of do a bit of an intro for those that don't know who you are and tell us that sort of how did you brand yourself as the vacation rental software guy?
Well, I really didn't brand myself. It was Matt Landau who suggested I use that, buy that domain, which I did. But for me, I demoed more software than anybody in the industry, probably for sure. PMS, my research started with the PMS and then it branched out into all technology after that. But like everybody else in the industry, I did it for a reason, to serve a problem that I had. And like everybody else, at one time I was using spreadsheets. And then I realized the biggest change that ever came for me was when HomeAway, at that time VRBO, HomeAway, whatever you want to call them, introduced Best Match. And that was really the pivotal changing point for me in my business life, where I knew without technology I was going to get left behind. And so at that time, I was using a very inexpensive PMS. I knew I had to go in an entirely different direction, which I did. And then I started doing research, doing demo after demo after demo. Finally picked one, and then I was, at that time, around that time, I joined Matt Landau. I met him, joined his inner circle, started sharing the story. He said, you really need to start documenting all this stuff. And I said, oh, okay. So I started documenting it. And then I picked a PMS, and then about 3-4 years later, I had outgrown that PMS, needed another one, went on the journey again. At that time, I'd already been documenting all my demos and all my findings and stuff like that. And then that's basically how I just had tons and tons of data. People wanted to buy my data, from me, from my demos. And it was just serving a need that I had, and I had to find a solution for.
And it's just incredible, like how many options there are on the table with property management systems. And just before we start this conversation, one of the other things that you were saying was how important this technology is for our industry. And it's actually what sets short-term rentals apart in hospitality and tourism and accommodation as a whole. Tell me a bit about your thoughts around the crucial nature of technology in short-term rentals.
Well, you can never, I don't even think you can even really compete in this industry now unless you're using technology to the best of your advantage and using the best technology that you can find. You had asked a question just a little bit earlier there that how complex it is, how complicated it is, and it really is. And for example, because where we are, we're 12 hours apart when we're talking right now. So you very seldom, it depends where you are located, whether you're in North America, whether you're in Europe, like you very seldom ever see a property manager in Europe using a North American centric PMS, and the same thing vice versa. The same thing happens, and that's just how complicated it is. So you think it's complicated just trying to choose a PMS or choose some kind of technology. Where you operate has a huge implication on what technology you choose.
So I guess what you're saying as well, we're not going to be able to give the answer as to what the best PMS is today because it depends on each individual and their own
Well,
circumstance.
I have my opinions of, and then I can tell you, I'll give you just off the top of my head. Okay.
Yeah, look, I think what I really want from this episode, I don't want to give people necessarily the best PMS because you know what, regardless of whatever you say today, Terry, it's probably
Yeah.
going to change by in the next 6 months or 12 months because everything is changing so quickly, be it from the technology side or the company side, but also from the industry side because things are constantly changing, evolving, new technology is coming out. So everyone's
Yes.
kind of leapfrogging each other anyway. So the content that we provide today, I want it to be there for 5 years and people to be able to refer back to it and go, oh, okay, cool. These are some of the principles that are really important when we're looking for that technology upgrade. And I think the one thing before we kind of get into sort of that journey and what people should be looking for when choosing their property management system is just recognizing the innovation that comes out of our industry. And I think the accommodation show, it's for everybody. So it's for no matter if you're a hotel, a motel, a bed and breakfast. Like personally, I don't really mind. I find that we're all serving a guest. A common goal is to create experiences for people. But from a technology point of view, I think that we've seen, Airbnb change the industry completely because of the technology, because of what it enabled people to rent out their homes, right? Like that was like people were doing it, but putting notices on boards to rent them out, and then the technology changed everything, and this industry was really led by that technology change. Why do you think that is, and how do you think it's impacted things?
Well, you just said like Airbnb, like they have the technology, but really, for an individual person that owns one or two properties, you really don't need, you can use their technology. You need very little of your own to be successful. So there's a lot of different ways to look at this and how it affects us, how we got to the point that we are right now. And Airbnb, yeah, but you can still do a good job. We see it all the time. People just use Airbnb only as a channel and don't even have a website and really don't have much technology either.
Yeah.
So this is far reaching. And we could talk all day and all week, about technology and how it's changed our industry. And it's just, where do you start and where do you stop? Is where we're at right now.
I think that's a really nice little segue, Terry, is that when we talk about technology, so technology is just such a broad term, right? It's not very practical at all, right? Where everything's technology, right? The camera that we're talking through is technology. But what is that inflection point for a property manager to go, hey, all right, I'm just on Airbnb. I now potentially need to look at the technology that I'm using and do the switch. So what point is it, and why are they looking at implementing some sort of changes?
Well, the inflection point is right now, really. There's no way denying it. And what I call the closed loop is definitely upon us right now. The closed loop in North America is VRBO and Airbnb. The closed loop in Europe is Booking.com and Airbnb. So it's really, if you're only competing on one or both of those channels here, you're gonna hurt. You're gonna get hurt in a big way. The future of our industry, we're going back to the roots. We're going back to the vacation rental roots before VRBO started buying every relevant website in the world, and before Airbnb came on to the scene here. Before that, it was massive distribution. We're going back to massive distribution. Just look what's happened in the last 60 days. You look at, before that, you look at Marriott's in here. Hyatt this week is announced that they're in. American Express is in. Walmart is in. Who's next? Is it Facebook? Is it Amazon? It's definitely, it's coming, and the inflection point is here. And if you're restricting yourself to one channel, you're going to get hurt in a big way because there's way too much inventory out there. There's so much opportunity out there. And the only way that you can get to that inflection point is through technology. You can't do it now. Like you can't do the Airbnb thing. I just said, Airbnb has the technology, you don't really need it. But you're dead in the water. If that's your philosophy, you're dead.
So one of the things that you're talking about there, and just to break it down for those that might be a little bit newer to the industry, so we have distribution channels. And a distribution channel is a way that somebody makes a booking with you, and these distribution channels distribute inventory. Inventory in our case, a room or accommodation. It could be a house, it could be a spare room. If you're in a hotel, then the concept of distribution is probably more well understood. But then right now, if you're just on Airbnb, that is your one distribution channel. And you might say, well, also people call me up and then my friends, they book that way. That's actually a second distribution channel. And then you might go, okay, so there's a different online travel agents, so VRBO, Booking.com, TripAdvisor, all the rest of them, and new ones that are coming into the space, which Terry was just talking about. And then you'll have your own Book Direct website. And all the Book Direct website is another distribution channel.
It's exactly what it is.
Yeah. The key here is to tie them all together. You need a piece of software to make that work, which is called a channel manager. And the channel manager manages all the different channels, so a distribution channel, and ties it all together, so that then you can distribute your rates, you can distribute your availability. So if someone's looking, if someone makes a booking, then all the different channels know that room is no longer available. So that's what we're talking there. But I'm gonna push back on you for a second, Terry, because yes, we need to be on those different channels. We can still get away with iCal links, and they do work, and I don't want to get through that argument right now, but let's assume they do work. We can't distribute pricing. Okay, cool, whatever. But if we've only got one or two properties, do we still need to do it just yet, or can we hold off until we're sort of running to 3 or 4? Right now, maybe in the future, but right now we can still get away with just Airbnb with 1 or 2 properties. Isn't that right?
You could, yeah, you could. I'm just such a big fan of having your own website, and the reason for that is you just said your website is a distribution channel, which for sure it's your most important distribution channel. But everything that you do in this industry now, and I think digital marketing is going to play a huge role going forward. Digital marketing isn't marketing; it is distribution. And I have a different philosophy on this than almost anybody in the industry, but it's definitely not marketing, it's distribution. But it's better distribution than any OTA, because what happens with digital marketing, you're driving everything back to your own website. Everything you're doing before, you're driving, it's coming from another source. But whatever you do with your distribution, with your website, whether it's newsletters, PPC, Google AdWords, Facebook PPC, Instagram PPC, it's all going back directly to your website. It's the most important distribution channel you can have. When you're starting out, yes, you use OTAs, but then you quickly should be graduating to the importance of your own website. And I think the future of the modern day tech stack is going to be the PMS, your website, and Breezeway. I think are going to be the three staples of the modern day tech stack, for sure.
Look, music to my ears, considering our whole philosophy is making sure that everybody has access to a Book Direct website. That's what we live and breathe, and we believe that everybody should have their own website. And you're right, you build more depth into your business so that therefore you have options. So when things aren't necessarily going the way you want them to, you've at least got the opportunity to fight or to do something, where if you're stuck with one channel, you have less control. And there's a lot of sort of talk about, anti-OTA and that sort of thing. Absolutely not. You're running a business here. You're
Yeah. Yeah.
designed to make profit, right? So you just find the best channels at any given moment and go to them and use them as a business. So, but then we know that direct bookings is a strong one. But I'm going to move on, and I'm going to keep it moving because I really want to delve into this journey of finding the right PMS. So one of the most common calls I get, and I swear to God, it's probably 3 or 4 times a week, I'll get a phone call saying, "Hey Bart, I need to switch PMS systems. Who should I go with?" And for me personally, and I don't want to give kind of your answers, but for me personally, there's the technology. So there's doing the demos, having a look at it, but there's also the people that run the companies and people that I can, the support, the contact, the, hey, if I get into trouble, these people will look after me. So that's kind of what I look at. If someone gives you a call today and says, "Hey Terry, I'm starting my investigation journey. What should I do?" What would you say to them?
The first advice I would give to them is you should pick the best, deepest, most expensive PMS you can afford. You should have the best and most expensive website that you can have. That's the 2 principles that I want to say. They both go together. And number 1 principle, 2, is, I tell this people, I don't care how big you are, get your website off of your PMS platform. That is a recipe for disaster. Here, there's only one absolute here, and that is Avantio. If somebody came to me and said, my website's going to be built by Avantio, they're going to be my PMS, I'd say, I love it. After that, though, it's almost across the board. Never make that mistake. And then getting back to what's the best PMS you can choose is the best PMS. And a lot of it will depend on where you live. Are you in North America? Are you in Europe? And how many properties you have? Do you plan on growing your inventory? The worst thing you want to do is kind of start out small and then outgrow it within 2 years. But when you're starting out, there's nothing wrong with making a mistake. Like when people come to me and they have 500 properties and they say, "I need to change my PMS," that you can't make a mistake. Like it has to be right. But if you have 2, 3, 5 properties, if you make a mistake, like I had 50 properties and I've changed PMSs like 3 times. It's 50 properties. It's not a big deal. So don't be afraid to make a mistake. The worst thing you can do, and I see this all the time, is it's so complicated. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't want to make a mistake. So what do? Spreadsheets. Just pick one and learn. And you'll be surprised. It'll take you 6 months to learn it. It'll take you a year to master it. But after a year, you will know exactly what you have, what you don't have, if you need more, and you'll know where to find it. Just pick one and get started. The worst PMS in the world is 100 times better than spreadsheets.
Yeah, I love it. And talk to me about the concept of specifically for PMS. We can go back to websites later on, but for PMS, choose expensive. Can you tell me the rationale behind that?
Well, usually I'm a believer in life. You get what you pay for. So you're not going to usually get a PMS that is really, really super expensive and you make a mistake and it's not a good PMS. So basically I know, and a lot of times when you're choosing a PMS, it comes down to affordability. If you have 1 property, 2, 5 properties, sometimes you can't afford the best PMS out there, but the best one that you can afford, and that's not really hard to distinguish who it is and what you're getting and what you're paying for,
I'm going to argue that. I think it is hard to distinguish. I think it's incredibly hard to distinguish which one's good. Because, particularly, let's say in Australia, there's a bunch of different PMS systems. And there's a lot coming over from the States as well, which is really exciting. So, let's say we're approaching this problem and we just don't know, and Terry's like, "Well, yeah, of course I know which ones are the best, but everybody else who doesn't know, they're looking at a website, right? Oh, this website looks nice. This one, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the back end is any good or not, or that their channel management doesn't even work, or it doesn't even have the right connections. And people just don't have the time to go through and look at all the different connections and that sort of thing. So how do they know? Because you've got price, right? But then that doesn't necessarily equate to value. So how do you know that you're going in the right direction? How do you start to decipher whether this company's better or worse, or the one that you want to go with?
Well, it's the one that meets your own needs, and there's no easy way to do it unless you have to do demos. You have to get on and talk to these people, research their product, use YouTube. All these, most of these PMSs have very good YouTube channels that you can even do some research on before you even start the demo. So preparing yourself for that, and then talk to people in the industry, talk to people that have used them in the past, using them now, even past clients. There's nothing wrong with reaching out to people like that. But the only way is to either hire somebody that knows what they're doing or do the demos. You have to go through the demos and you have to be comfortable with it. For me, there's some PMSs when I look at it, they just don't really make sense to me at all. And maybe there's something wrong with the PMS. It's just maybe my way of understanding it, So it has to make sense to you as a person. You have to like the product, you have to believe that you can use it, and you have to think that you're going in the right direction. So even somebody come to you to build a website, nobody probably ever comes to you and they're the only person that they go to. They probably go to 3 or 4, 5 other people. So there's no easy answer to it. But in the end, when you talk to people, when you look at their product, when you look at their reviews, you get the feeling that you understand it and this is the right choice for you to make. And then again, we'll go to websites and compare them to PMSs. Once you have a website for a year or so, you'll get to understand the limitations of it. Did you make a mistake? Do you need more? And then you know what to look for.
To pivot around that.
Yeah.
I love that answer, and I hope you don't mind me pushing you, Terry. It's really important because these are the real questions that you get, and do I have to do the demos? Well, guys, yes, you do have to do the demos, and you do have to do your research because you need to know what's going to be important to you as a business owner. I like the idea of local understanding, and that's a great thing. Is this with PMS companies, when they start to show up in your area, show up to your conferences and your events, that means that they're investing in that particular area as well, and they're actively spending money there, so they're going to want to make sure that they understand the needs of your area and your demographic. And look, I'll give you some examples. There's different regulations in different states nowadays, right? And then so you need your system to be able to cope with that. Trust accounting is a thing that we've got over here and in different places, so you might need that particular feature. I'm going to go into features in just a second, Terry, and kind of things that we should look out for in a PMS system. But I just want to maybe finish off that point of doing the demos and your research, and always asking friends, family, people in the industry is useful. I also want people to take caution with that, because also just because it's the most popular doesn't mean that it's the best and it's got the best team. Talking to founders, talking to the people on the team there, you get a good sense. Looking for companies that have got a team with tenure, so people that have been doing their jobs for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and you can research them on LinkedIn. You go, oh gosh, you've been with this PMS company for 4 years. Something is probably going right in terms of the structure of the company. You've been there for long enough. You've got tenure in the company, which basically means you're not jumping around from place to place trying to go to the best thing. It's like this company is for real. So doing that level of research and just looking at the people, I think, is a very good way to get an indication as to that level of service that they're promising you. It's a good chance that's going to continue after you've signed up as well, rather than thing. Because also, if you're doing your research on a Facebook group and that sort of thing, basically the noisiest companies generally, it's the companies are spending the time on Facebook rather than spending their time on their product, right? Which is the thing. So doing that research, so LinkedIn, Don't necessarily take the first person's advice. Use that, make a short list from all the different people you talk to, and then start to do your demos. Would you agree?
Yeah, and company's reputation. And I'm going to give you one company. They're built for small operators like you. You like to mention that you're the biggest fan of small operators. And I'm in all of the PMSs that I have seen in owner res is kind of built for the smaller one. Nobody in this industry, regardless of size, has a better customer service reputation in this industry than owner res. So to me, that speaks volume of what you just said. People that follow them, people that believe in the product, is reputation goes a long, long way in this industry.
Yeah,
and it can really help
owner res. Yeah, that's what happened for me. So we've got maybe half a dozen, or maybe even a dozen websites that are integrated with owner res or using owner res as the booking engine. And we haven't had any issues at all. And plus, this isn't a plug for owner res. That's not the purpose of this. But reputation. So you want to have a look around, and there are some unbelievable other pieces of software which are out there as well. So have a look at who's playing the game and who's sponsoring events and going to that and building their reputation. Go and talk to those reps on the stands at the events. So that's a really good tip as well. Now we're starting to quickly run out of time, Mr. Terry. So I want to move into features and functionality, and I just want to talk about things that you think would be critical for people to consider, because sometimes people don't know what's kind of sitting behind a property management system and what's important. And we talked about it as channel manager. I think that'll be pretty standard for most property management systems. But what kind of features and functionality should we be looking at?
Well, you said it and everybody says it, is how complicated it is. Like, where do I start? And it is very complicated. But what I always tell people, regardless of your size, whether you're just starting out, whether it's your first PMS, your second one, or whether you have 500 properties or 1,000, the easiest way to make sense of all this is to understand there's 10 core components of a good tech stack, which is your PMS, your website, your booking engine, distribution, operations, revenue management, your CRM, guest relations, communications, home automation, digital marketing, and then further down the road, once you get established there, that's 10. Another one I would say is owner acquisition once you get established. But if you can concentrate on those 10, break it down into 10 different modules, segments, concentrate on those 10, because there's, just like in the research that I do when I sit down with a PMS, there's 35 different components that I score them on, I break them down. So it gets way too complicated for people like that. But if you can understand the 10 core components, and if you get those right, you're going to be in pretty good shape, and it will it'll bring it into context that you can understand.
Yeah. I love it. And the interesting thing is, even looking, that list went so quickly. So for those of you that are listening or watching, remember you can rewind it and get that list again. I'm sure that it's on your website as well.
I can send it to you in the show notes too if you want.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, we'll put in the show notes. But what fascinates me is that list of those 10, those are the core sort of fundamentals, but I can also see them starting to sort of morph a little bit. So if I think of tools like AI and chatbots and things like that, and that customer service side, I don't know if you say customer service on that list, but there's just so many little variables that are coming in, which is great, because there's all of that. All right, as we get towards the end, are there any elements that we're missing in terms of helping people to figure out their PMS?
No, but I don't think the future of technology, the biggest and the best future of technology coming into our space is going to be the PMS. I think there's going to be a bloodbath in the PMS sphere of things. There's way too many doing just the same thing, but you just mentioned guest communications. I think that's where the best technology is going to come into our industry. We're going to see companies, we're already seeing it now, we're seeing companies like Enzo, DAC, Breezeway, Duve, taking communication. But what's happening now is it's all about the guest experience. What's going to happen, not after you book the property, when you get to the location, tours, activities, the experience, things to do like that. The warning shot's already been fired. The technology is out there, and it's called, I forget, it just slips my mind. Trip around, it's called Trip Around here. That then blending those kind of technologies, whether it's the ones that I just mentioned with Explory or Trip Around or something like that, you're going to see technology in our industry that we have never seen before. Will they use AI? Yes, they will use AI. It'll be technology that we've never seen before. And the future of technology in our industry, I don't believe is coming from the PMS. It's going to come from elsewhere. Even though the core is still, and it will always be the PMS, it's not going to be the leader in technology in our industry going forward.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, really, really good point. And I think there are those different tools that are coming through, and I think that the hospitality side of building a brand is really going to be what will drive businesses towards that massive growth. If you look at even the franchise model for a lot of property management companies, them understanding that you need to have some brand standards that you lean into to be able to build this thing so that you can have the consumers can have confidence in booking is going to be critical towards that large scale growth in the future of the industry, and that a lot of those rules will be able to be applied back down to smaller business owners. So I completely get that.
If I could say one thing, Bart, is one thing for your guests I would really recommend is do not fall. I've been the only one in the industry, the only single person in this industry that said this delusional, plug and play or best in class was the future of our industry. Everybody in the industry said that. I said it's never going to happen. And it's not happening. It's happening on a different scale now. So I hope that your listeners, that doing more on one platform is, you're never going to do it all on one platform, but you can already see it's already taking place. It's already happening. When you look at Enzo, when you look at Duve, when you look at DAC, when you look at the single best technology in our industry going forward, which is Breezeway, which will be the deepest and best technology in our industry going forward. That's not a PMS. And it's going to all because you're going to be able to run almost all your operations between your PMS and one single platform. There. So if you're watching, if you're trying to simplify this, do as much as you can on one platform and get your website off of your PMS.
Correct. Get an iBooked Online website, everybody, from Terry himself. Folks, thank you so much for tuning into the Accommodation Show. We appreciate you listening. Make sure that if you like the content, that you give us a like, give us a subscribe. It's absolutely critical, because then it gets legends like Terry on the show and they pay attention and then they come and give their value. Make sure that if you like it, share it around as well. If you think somebody's looking for a property management system, send them to this video so that they can get some tips and advice. Mr. Terry, what is the best way for people to stay in touch with you?
Vacation rental software guy, or Andaman Island Beach Rentals, Terry at Andaman Island Beach Rentals, or on LinkedIn.
Yeah, awesome. And we will be seeing each other very soon at VRMA, which I'm looking forward to. Funnily enough, we will have already seen each other at VRMA by the time this comes out. So we'll have a chat there. Thank you so much, Terry. I really appreciate you. I appreciate the work that you're doing and the support that you have shown me through my journey over the past few years. I want to also reiterate to all the hotel guys, all the motel girls, make sure that you pay attention to some of the learnings that you can take across different segments of the industry, because there's so much technology, that's so much innovation that's coming through that will then affect your business. Terry, thank you very much once again. Such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you, Bart. It's been a pleasure.
Have a great day.
You too.